undergraduate student government presidential debate took place last night. TV2 was there and has the candidates in the studio for a live update.
From directors to president, we have Kent State student undergraduate government presidential candidates.
PARTA has received $1.5 million in federal funding, where the money will be going and what to expect.
Secretary of State Frank LaRose says it's impossible to have state, house, and Senate races in the May 3rd primary. All this and more as Portage Pulse starts right now.
County, and welcome to this week's episode of Portage Pulse. I'm Olivia Sharp.
And I'm Kennedy Gotham. DePerio, chair of Portage County Democratic Party, has stepped down. DePerio did this because he wants to devote more time to the addiction clinic he founded with Town Hall 11. With increasing overdose deaths in Portage County, he believed the need for treatment was imperative. Denise Smith will be filling his chair. She has lived in Portage County for many years and has served many different roles in the community.
The Ohio Supreme Court is deciding whether the city of Rootstown will pay $500 or $7,000 after committing over a dozen violations to the Open Meetings Act. The law states the fee for the violation is $500, but Brian Ames, the man who submitted the accusation, believes the city should pay $500 for each individual violation.
An Energy Harbor was planning to close 62-year-old Samus Power Plant by 2022, but with the passing of House Bill 6, those plans have since changed. The plant is set to be sold or closed by 2023, and House Bill 6 did not subsidize the Samus plant, but CEO John Judge said the two Ohio nuclear power plants would allow for his company to be, quote, economically healthy. The Akron-based company said this is part of their plan to become a 100% carbon-free energy generator by the end of next year.
The attorney representing Andrew Walls, the 26-year-old man charged with punching a black woman in Akron, confirms Walls is a member of the local Proud Boys group. His attorney, Andrew Wide, states that his client's affiliation with the group had no influence from or connection to the Proud Boys. Wide also alleges that the event is, quote, in no way, shape, or form indicative of a hate crime.
A $1.25 million bond has been placed on 38-year-old Stephen Winsome on charges of rape and kidnapping. He is alleged to have held a Kent woman against her will, sexually assaulting her in her apartment and stealing her minivan. He pled not guilty to the charges of rape, kidnapping, aggravated robbery, drug possession, and grand theft of a motor vehicle. Previous court records describe the man as homeless, and if he is released, he is to wear an electronic monitoring device and have no contact with the victim.
Kent police officers Leonard Kunka and Kyle Auckland have been honored with the 2022 Acts of Courage Award for their involvement in stopping a robber in January 2021. The officers responded to a call made by a 14-year-old girl stating that a man had broke into her house while she was babysitting an infant. Kunka and Auckland were both shot in the struggle with the suspect before he was arrested.
Since the start of the pandemic, Kent State has made ACT and SAT scores optional to submit during the admissions process. But Kent State has since made this change permanent. The University of Akron is now looking to make testing optional permanent, similarly to Kent. Akron's provost said standardized testing isn't always a fair measure of students' abilities.
PARTA has received $1.5 million in federal funding, which they plan to use on replacing and fixing their buses. This grant comes from the Grants for Buses and Facilities program funded by the U.S. Department of Transportation. The Office of Senator Sherrod Brown stated that PARTA's new funding was among $32.64 million in grants distributed to transportation programs across the United States.
Yesterday, the undergraduate student government held a debate about general policies for the next academic year.
Our own Della Fowler went to the debate to see what the next year's agenda may be. Della?
That's right. Hey guys, last night I went to the debate regarding policies and campaigns for the next year.
The bridge between students and faculty is the undergraduate student government, also known as USG. Next week, elections will be held for USG, where students can choose everywhere from a president to senators acting on behalf of their majors. Last night, a debate was held among the candidates. Student body presidential candidate Jenna Gilbreath described what USG is all about.
So I started to see these opportunities to kind of have a shift in our campus culture where students can actually be co-creators of our university and actually have kind of a say in the way that they experience campus here.
Many topics were discussed among candidates, including student resources, mental health days on campus, and adjusting curriculum for future semesters. Sophomore marketing and communications candidate Juliana Bonito explained her stances on student resources.
It is such a problem on our campus that students are not aware of the abundant resources we're offered. And to use marketing as a tool to reach out to those students, make sure that they know what's available to them, and make sure that they are utilizing all of their resources is what I believe representing the student body best in this role would be.
Elections will be held on March 22nd and 23rd from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Make sure to reference the KentWired article for a profile into every candidate to cast your vote next week on Flashline. For TV2 News, I'm Della Fowler.
Pulse sits down with the undergraduate student government president candidates to talk about their policies and the upcoming school year.
And Ukrainian President Zelensky spoke to Congress this week asking for help. A recap of his speech ahead.
This is TV2 News, Truly Portage County.
Welcome back. We are joined by undergraduate student government president candidates Erik and Jenna Gilbreath. Thank you both for joining us today. So what made you both want to run for student body president?
So the reason why I wanted to run for student body president is because I want to advocate for the well-being of every single student. So I want to do that by making sure that we bridge that information gap. So we have a lot of great resources here at Kent to help students. For example, there's 6 free therapy sessions that's covered under your student fee. So just making sure that students know these resources is the first step. My second point is I want to include students' voice. I want to give students a seat at the table, and I want to do that by hosting a monthly luncheon where students from sororities, fraternities, different organizations on campus can sit down with me and tell me what concerns they have so I can funnel them up through to the administration. And my third point is living up to the phrase flashes take care of flashes. I know we definitely say that a lot as a university, but I really want undergraduate student government to live up to that. And I want to make sure that undergraduate student government is an inclusive community that doesn't just fight for some students or most students, but fights for all students.
And then how about you, Jenna?
Yeah, so I'll be completely honest, I had no intention of running for student body president originally, which is not what you're expecting. Right now I'm currently the director of student involvement, and through that role I've had the opportunity to actually see that students have a lot of things that they care about on this campus and a lot of things that they want to change. And we see the first steps of students posting to social media, doing rallies on campus. And once when they make those steps, we see that they don't really know what to do next. They don't know how to continue that change. And I realized that through my role as Director of Student Involvement, I started to make steps and opportunities for students to do that. And I really wanted to extend that opportunity and kind of shift our culture on our campus where students can actually be co-creators of our university. And so I decided to do that by running for student body president, because within this role, I feel like I'll have the opportunity to work directly with the stakeholders on our campus. So this includes our faculty, staff, and administration, because all of us sitting here, we're all gonna graduate, we're gonna leave. And so this whole idea that I have, it can't continue unless I get our faculty, staff, and our administration involved.
So what would be, each of you, your first respective act as student body president?
So my first act as student body president would involve mental health. Mental health will always be my first priority. So I'm thinking of implementing mental health days into the syllabus. So that would be 1 or 2 days of the semester. Students would be excused from classes so they can take time to recharge. And I'm very confident that I can work with the administration to make that happen for students.
And my first act as student body president would be to work directly with students to help them better understand the resources that we have available on our campus, because I feel that so many students all of these resources exist, but they don't understand how to utilize them and actually make a difference on our campus, because there's all kinds of things, like currently Change in a Flash is an opportunity that I helped start on our campus. It's an opportunity for students to pitch their campus change project and receive up to $6,000 for the implementation of that project, and to actually really co-create our university. So I want to extend all of these opportunities to students because all of these resources exist for you. However, I feel like they aren't always advertised to all students, so it feels like students are left out. So I want to bring all students opportunities to the table.
And what do you feel like makes you different from other candidates that are running?
So I think something that makes me different from other candidates who are running is I really want to work more closely with Greek life. I feel like undergraduate student government can do a lot more in terms of collaborating with Greek life. I believe that both Greek life and USG, they do a lot of the same things. We cultivate student leadership and we give back to the community. So I want to be intentional about creating a stronger and more mutually beneficial relationship so that we can cultivate student leadership together.
Yeah, that's really awesome, Erik. I think that's really great. But a lot of what I stand for, it's super non-traditional, because the way that I'm approaching this campaign and, if elected, my presidency, is completely creating a culture shift on our campus. And I think that oftentimes terms can be limited to specific things that you're trying to accomplish. However, my whole goal is to extend these opportunities to all students on our campus. It really truly wasn't until I was in our undergraduate student government that I truly felt like I had the tools and the resources to create change on our campus, and I don't think that should just be limited to students and student leadership. So I feel that what I stand for is extending these opportunities to all students, and that's really different because I'm trying to change our whole culture and create co-creation here.
Sounds absolutely wonderful, both of you. So what do you want to change first and foremost about the Kent campus?
So something that I would like to implement is being more intentional about how we hold the other positions on the board accountable. So one idea I have in mind is for our Senator for Diversity, we add a requirement that one of their office hours, they're in an affinity space that they don't personally identify with. So for example, I'm a man and I'm part of the LGBTQ community. So I would go to the Women's Center 1 hour each week, and that's to be intentional about making sure that the Senator for Diversity is advocating for all diverse groups and not just some.
Thank you.
Yeah, for me, I really think that I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
So what would be one of the first things you would implement into the Kent campus itself?
Oh, okay, perfect. I think that if we reach students early on and really tell them that they can be ambitious and that they have the space to do that. If we reach them early on and show them, look, these are things that students have done in the past and you too can make that difference, and tying in our faculty, staff, and administration into those conversations and inviting them into spaces like DKS or FYE classes or PLTC classes. Just those are some examples and just the start. But I feel like if we reach people early on, that will start to change the culture already. So that's one of the first things that I do.
Well, thank you both so much for joining us today. Voting for USG opens Tuesday the 22nd at 8 a.m. and closes Wednesday the 23rd at 5 p.m. You can vote through the Flashline app or online. Now from our Kent state representatives to our federal representatives, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky addressed Congress Wednesday to gain U.S. support for Ukraine. Zelensky asked the U.S. to strengthen its sanctions against Russia. He also appealed for the U.S. to call for a no-fly zone over Ukraine. Knowing that the U.S. has no intention of declaring a no-fly zone, Zelensky also asked for support in a new air defense system. After hearing Zelensky's speech, many members of Congress praised Zelensky and Ukraine for their bravery, as well as advocating for continued U.S. support.
Made the case very strongly.
And I would imagine that the average American, if they had a chance to listen to President Zelensky and see the video, would want to do more.
I cannot remember the last time a foreign leader united a room full of members from both sides so quickly and so intensely.
Ukraine's President Zelensky says Russia's shelling is preventing the establishment of humanitarian corridors for Mariupol. Many people have managed to escape the major cities that are under Russian attack. Zelensky said 130 people were rescued from a theater that was bombed Wednesday, and 1,300 remain trapped. And there are currently 3 million refugees, more than half of them going to Poland.
U.S. intelligence agencies are stating that Putin is becoming increasingly frustrated with Ukraine's resistance to the Russian invasion. He has also repeatedly condemned the many Russians who are actively protesting the invasion.
They will try to bet on the so-called fifth column, on traitors, on those who earn their money here but live over there, live not in the geographical sense, but in the way they think, with the mindset of a slave.
Republicans running for the U.S. Senate in Ohio are facing scrutiny for having ties with Russia. These candidates are running in the May 3rd primary election, and former Ohio Republican Party Chair Jane Tickman's husband founded a company with ties to Russia. It suspended its operations with Russia. With the high population of Ukrainians in Ohio, companies are feeling the pressure. And these candidates may be unable to run in the May 3rd primary election, with Ohio Senate saying it might be impossible to hold as the redistricting committee and state Supreme Court battle.
Governor Mike DeWine speaks out after signing the constitutional carry law. Stick with Portage Pulse for the details. Ohio Secretary of State Frank LaRose says including state, House, and Senate races in the May 3rd primary is impossible. This is a result of the Ohio Redistricting Committee being unable to agree on the new legislative maps. LaRose also asked local boards of election to not send or alter any ballots. Overseas and military ballots were supposed to be sent out today. It is unclear how these will be affected.
Redistricting maps are still being decided upon in the Ohio Supreme Court. The Ohio Supreme Court has thrown out at least 3 maps, and they have been redrawn. Governor Mike DeWine suggested that the Democratic and Republican map makers, quote, work together to make a new 4th map. DeWine said there are other options, but the Supreme Court has only given them 10 days to make the new maps. State Senate Vernon Sky said it is essential to call a meeting for the Redistricting Commission.
The newly signed law that will make concealed carry permits optional will go into effect in Ohio on June 12th. This law also eliminates the required training needed to legally carry a gun. Governor Mike DeWine defended his decision to sign the controversial law by stating, quote, about half the states now have this provision, and I think this is consistent with the United States Constitution. The U.S. Census estimates were released Thursday, and the median family income for Kent is over $77,000 per household. This is less than many of the surrounding cities, with Stowe at $92,000, Talmadge at $86,000, and Streetsboro at $78,000. But Kent is still above Akron, which sits at $50,000. The highest median income from Ohio is from the Columbus suburb of New Albany.
A school district in Columbus is facing a lawsuit after a school board president told a mom to zip it during a board meeting. The parent's attorney now saying it was a violation of free speech. ABC 6 Alex Morgaber has more on the story out of Columbus. That was not mine.
And I'm telling you, you're done at the podium.
Big Walnut schools now facing a lawsuit after the school board president told a mom to zip it during a board meeting.
Zip it for a minute.
No. Listen, I realize you have a problem with authority or women in power trying to talk over you. But here's the thing. This is my time, not yours.
During the school board's meeting on February 17th, Ashley Ryder said she was critical of certain board members' views on mental health services. Board President Doug Crow then felt she was trying to defame some of the members.
You can go sit down.
He then told Ryder she was finished and ordered her to leave.
Addressing you.
Your time's done.
No.
According to the board's bylaws, the presiding officer can silence speech he considers to be personally directed, abusive, or antagonistic. But Ryder's attorney, Matt Miller Novak, and others in the community feel Crow violated free speech.
Having a rule that says you're not allowed to make personally directed comments is viewpoint based. It's essentially a rule by a government saying that its citizens cannot criticize them.
There's a First Amendment that gives the citizens of the United States the ability to express themselves. This board president doesn't understand that.
The board held a special meeting Tuesday. And they suspended all enforcement of public participation policy that, quote, restricts abusive, personally directed, and antagonistic speech. But Ryder's attorney not satisfied.
Suspending a rule is not ending it. I mean, the end goal is simple. The people of the school district of Big Walnut should be allowed to raise their concerns and criticisms of their elected officials during public participation.
Stephen Thomas, a former Cuyahoga County jail guard, has been granted early release after serving over half his sentence for taking bribes to help smuggle items into the jail. Thomas had previously been sentenced to 2 years in jail and is being released 9 months before the end of his previous sentence. In addition to granting Thomas early release, Judge William McGinty also placed Thomas on probation for 2 years.
And how the White House celebrated St. Patrick's Day amid the pandemic.
Thursday was set to be a celebratory day at the White House, with President Biden reveling in his Irish roots at an in-person St. Patrick's Day event. These events were canceled the last 2 years due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
While these events were able to happen, they were almost canceled again. The White House was forced at the last minute to adjust its plans after the mark of the holiday to prepare for high-profile positive coronavirus tests.
That about wraps up this week's episode. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Olivia Sharp.
And I'm Kennedy Gotham. Have a great week on Portage County.
From the campus of Kent State University, streaming online at KentWired.com.